Welcome back, everybody, to Toronto Today here in the Parlay. I'm your host, Luca, alongside my co-host, Michael, and we are back on this fine but cold Friday here in Toronto as we're going to bring you the latest out of Toronto sports and more. But first things first, as we always do on the show, we're going to recap our best bet picks. Mine look questionable. I thought the Grizzlies were finally going to lose that win streak, but they were able to come back to not only beat the Timberwolves, to extend their win streak to 11, but they covered the numbers. So now my best bet is looking pretty good. I'm 3-2 overall going into tonight's best bet. While Mikey Singh, I mean, I understood why you went with your pick, but you were not a happy camper once you found out that KD and Kyrie were not playing.
Yeah, I mean, I knew Kyrie heading into that one wouldn't be playing just because of the restrictions with the vaccinations and everything. But then the KD news came out about an hour after we made our picks, and I was like, oh no. Oh no. And yeah, obviously James Harden was not enough to carry that team last night. They almost made it close a couple of times actually without Harden. But OKC prevailed, and a couple of Canadians had some big performances for the Thunder, which I was, it's bittersweet. I was happy to see the Canadians, show up. At the same time, I was sad to see my pick just go to waste there. And hey, you did a good job there picking the Grizz again, maintaining that faith in the Grizzlies. It worked. It worked. That was a close game. I was watching that game as well, and a couple of times I'm like, oh no, Luca, you're losing it here. And then they make that late run, and yeah, good for you, man. 3-2. I'm unfortunately 1-4, so not sitting too pretty right now.
Hey, we got a lot of opportunities to redeem ourselves over the next couple days and weeks. So we're going to get more into the Canadian talent that was on display in that OKC win against the Nets. But first, we're going to get to Raptors-Pistons. The Raptors are in action tonight following their close loss against the Suns. They're going to have an opportunity to redeem themselves here. And the Raptors are going to be taking on an opponent in the Pistons. You think this would be an easy matchup for them, but not so fast. For whatever reason, the Pistons have had the Raptors number lately. They've won 4 straight meetings against the Raptors, and that's thanks in large part to Dwane Casey treating these games like they're NBA Finals games for the Pistons. I mean, the Pistons always show up against the Raps, and I guess Vegas doesn't care that the Pistons have won the last 4 because the opening line for this game is -8. I think it's even up to -8.5 right now. Raptors huge favorites on the money line. What do you see happening in this one?
Yeah, I know there is that Casey Raptors kind of speculation where Casey really gets up for these games. Um, but the Pistons are really, really bad, man. I don't know which kind of way to lean. They're without Jeremy Grant, who's been their best player for the last 2 seasons, and really that lineup is very, very mediocre. They're what, 9-31 or something this year. They've just won 9 games all year. So I am leaning Raptors to cover the spread just because of the form that they've been in, the confidence and swagger that they're playing with. And hey, listen, a lot of these guys weren't on the team when Dwane Casey was coaching. So I don't know if that still carries over, lingers over, but it's a big spread the Raptors have to cover. Winning by 9 points, that's on the road. It's never an easy thing. So I'm hesitant, but I still am leaning Raptors. How about you, Luca?
Yeah, we've seen these big numbers on the road struggle to cover. So this could
Mm.
be that typical trap game. And you look at the Pistons, they are, for as bad as they've been, they are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 home games. But then that being said, the Raptors are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8. This game's going to go either one of two ways. Raptors absolutely blow out the Pistons, or the Pistons keep this game close, because when the Pistons do lose, they lose big. The last 3 losses, the margin of defeat for the Pistons, 29, 30, and 46. That's like a high school team going up against the number 1 team in their division. It's crazy how bad they look when they are truly out of sync out of the gate. But if the Pistons do get off to a good start, this one could be interesting. And I'm leaning towards that just because Dwane Casey, he's proven that he has extra juice. He has extra motivation every time he goes up against Nick Nurse, a man who took his job, and a Raptors team that he did have a lot of success with. So I know
Yeah, sorry,
the
go ahead.
Pistons are going to be depleted. A couple key guys are out, and they have not looked good this season. But I think this is some good value here if you ride the Pistons at least to cover the number. And the Raptors could be without Gary Trent Jr. and Scotty Barnes. Now, their starting lineup without those two still significantly better than the Pistons. But we saw in that Suns game when the Raptors are lacking offense, who's going to be that guy to step up outside of Van Vliet and Siakam? And Siakam got into foul trouble in that fourth quarter, which really derailed the Raptors' momentum. So Gary Trent Jr., if he doesn't play in this one, I think we're really going to see his absence be magnified. And Scotty Barnes, we know every time he's out there, he's just a huge addition. So I think ultimately this could be a close game.
Yeah, and history would tell you that as Raptors are 3-7 in their last 10 games against Detroit in general, and 3-7 against the spread as well. So Casey really is sort of a spread killer for the Raptors. But like I said, it's the Pistons. It's Detroit. It's could be the worst team in the NBA right now. So is it a trap game? Perhaps. But I guess we learned that the hard way with the Leafs Coyotes the other night, and the Leafs were the heavy favorites in that game and they didn't come through. But I don't know. My brain is telling me perhaps it's a trap game, but my heart's telling me the Raptors are gonna prevail here. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think the one big thing going for the Raptors for this one is they've had 2 nights off. So there's not going to be any excuse of them playing in the second night of a back-to-back or fatigue. They should be relatively rested for this one. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, the last couple of games, these matchups have actually been exciting between the Raptors and the Pistons. So if you are feeling extra risky, I mean, Pistons are plus 300 on the money line. I'm not suggesting they're going to win, but hey, if they keep that number close and they enter the fourth quarter and the Raptors go stagnant from the field offensively, Pistons could steal one. But yeah, I don't see that happening. I do think the Raptors win, but I'm still in between about this spread. Like I said, I would lean towards the Pistons covering than the Raptors. But hey, we'll see, man. You've been riding the hot hand with the Raptors at least. So we'll see if the Raptors' incredible and impressive record against the spread can continue against a team they should handle. Let's be real. This is a game that should not be close, especially with the Raptors playing as well as they are. But that Dwane Casey factor, man, it's until it proves me wrong, it's always going to be there to look at.
Well, that's the thing, Luca, is okay, we're hesitant to bet against the spread. We're hesitant to bet straight up even potentially because you're not getting really good value on the Raptors at minus 380. But what you could take a look at, which is really interesting, is the over-under in this game. So the over-under right now is set at 213. And just for context, the total has gone over in 10 of Toronto's last 12 games. Now, 213 isn't a very high number, and perhaps that's because the Pistons really suck at scoring the basketball. But it's also worth noting the Raptors have hit the over 23 times this season as opposed to 15 under. So Raptors are a high-scoring team, and that works out, and maybe that's something where you can find some value is that over-under tonight, and I would say smash that over.
Yeah, the over has gone 4-0 in the last 4 meetings, and that's in large part to the Pistons making these games close. I remember those games very vividly. The Pistons came out hitting a bunch of threes, and you were looking at them like, what's going on here? The Raptors' inability to guard that three-point line really allowed the Pistons to get out to those early leads and dominate the first half. And then the Raptors would typically try to make the game a game by coming back in the third and fourth quarter. So yeah, the over looks pretty good because I do think this will be a game which sees the 3-point battle just favoring both teams. In the last couple of matchups, the Pistons have been hot from the field and from 3-point land. And we know the Raptors can get hot themselves from 3-point land thanks to Fred VanVleet, who can single-handedly go on a 15-plus soul run himself. So yeah, I do like that over too. So yeah, we'll see if you are, looking for a little bit of a parlay here, smash that over and either pick between Pistons covering or the Raptors destroying the Pistons.
Yeah, you could find some good value there, my guy.
All right, we're going to move on now to the Maple Leafs. They have some all-stars that they should be proud of. Austin Matthews making it and Jack Campbell. And also, you look at John Tavares, he could get in as a last man in. So are you surprised by this, or is it expected that the Leafs will be represented by at least Matthews and Campbell?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start by saying Austin Matthews, captain. That's pretty much a given at this point with the amount of exposure that he has with the player he really is. He is really one of the faces of the National Hockey League right now, along with Connor McDavid, maybe Nathan McKinnon as well. So definitely not surprised to see Matthews as captain. And I love that Jack Campbell got
Yeah.
into his very first All-Star game. This is a guy who was really highly touted coming out of the draft, a first round pick. And this was 12 years ago, by the way, but he never really found that opportunity. And when he was given that opportunity, he didn't take full advantage of it until he came to Toronto. So credit to Kyle Dubas for, finding Jack Campbell and turning him into what he is today, or helping to turn him into what he is today. And credit to Soupy for taking full advantage of that opportunity. So I think it's just a really good story overall that Jack Campbell, at this point in his career, he gets a crack at the All-Star game. What I am disappointed in, I know John Tavares has had an excellent season, especially after coming off that concussion against Montreal in the playoffs last year. He's really turned a lot of heads, and he's probably a really big reason for why the Leafs are so successful. But what about William Nylander? He's a player we've talked about, and this is a guy who leads the Leafs in scoring. So I guess my overall takeaway from this game is I'm not a really big fan of the format. I'm not a big fan of how each team gets one or at least one representative. It's an all-star game. It doesn't mean anything. It should just be the best on best. Who cares if there's a team or two that's not represented? I mean, that's because you get some all-stars.
Yeah.
Nazem Kadri, he's not even voted in automatically. And this guy's a top 5 point getter in the NHL. He's been that the entire season. It's just, yeah, that's where I take some gripe with that is the format.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the All-Star game formats are flawed right now. You even look at the NBA, a guy like Fred VanVleet is trailing in votes to Derrick Rose and Kyrie Irving. No disrespect to those two players, but Fred VanVleet head and shoulders having a much better campaign than both. So it's yeah, it could go either way, NHL, NBA, they both got their flaws. But my reaction to this is, yeah, Matthews was a no-brainer. You expected to see him there. And I'm really happy for Jack Campbell. You touched on it. Great story. Great surprise, even if you will. I mean, this dude was a second stringer. Nobody expected him to be this good. And the fact that he is going to be tasting his first bit of the All-Star game and just to be around some of those high-profile guys, I think it's going to do wonders for him in his career. So, yeah, this was expected. And, of course, you would have liked to see Nylander there from the good season that he's had. But, yeah, I mean, the All-Star formats, it's tricky because you can't, appeal to everybody. There's always going to be one thing that somebody doesn't like. And it is tough when you do talk about, limited spots and there's so much good talent. And you ultimately got to just pick, one or two guys compared to so many other guys that are having fantastic seasons. So that's what makes, the beauty of calling these all-star snubs. I'm sure this game's going to have a ton. The NBA is going to have a ton, and it's unfortunate for those guys who are having great seasons, but they just barely don't get in.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much sums it up very nicely. We'll see how it plays out, but I will say that the All-Star game could have some very interesting prop bets. I think that's always probably a fun part of these competitions. So look out for some fun ones. I know there's gonna be a lot of skills competitions and whatnot. So if I have to say, just take Austin Matthews and whatever, because that guy just seems to defy everything.
Damn, you're a degenerate when you're betting on in-game all-star prop bets. That's a first. But you know what? I might join
You
you
gotta
on that
spice it
money.
up a bit. You gotta spice it up a bit.
I've never done that before, but that could be interesting going into this All-Star game. All right, let's talk about some Canadian talent now on full display from yesterday. It is now time for our Canada A segment. And Michael Singh, you got a very special nominee here.
Yeah, for sure. I want to highlight Leylah Fernandez, who kicks off her Grand Slam season, I guess, with the Australian Open, first Grand Slam of the year. And this is a 19-year-old Montreal native who is actually coming off a Grand Slam finals appearance at the US Open. She had one of the most heroic runs we've seen from any tennis player, really, let alone a Canadian. And unfortunately, she did fall in the finals in that tournament, but she came really dang close, and it was a heck of a run. So I'm hoping she can kind of build off that momentum this year. She is not, like I said, 19 years old. I know the men's have some really good talent in Chapo and Felix, but Layla is making a case right now to be probably the favorite for Canada to pick up a Grand Slam title here. So keep an eye on Layla as she begins her Australian Open. Um, Unfortunately, in the Australian Open, she's actually yet to make it past the first round in two years. So hopefully she can kind of exercise these demons. She's facing Madison Inglis. I believe that's an Australian, and she's actually a heavy favorite in that one, minus 1,000 if you were going to pick Layla straight up in that one. So it's not really worth it for that. But this is, she's 2-0 against Inglis in her lifetime. But what you could actually take a look at, and one thing I want to highlight is Leylah Fernandez potentially winning the Australian Open. Right now, she's at plus 4,000, and like I said, she had a heroic run last major tournament, so those are potentially some good odds. If you want to bet just to her make the finals, you get plus 2,000. So shout out Layla as she does begin her journey this weekend at the Australian Open.
I love it. Yeah, we saw with Bianca Andreescu, that heroic run she made, that improbable run she made. That's a pretty good value. Yeah, I would definitely ride with that. I mean, it's a long shot, obviously, but she's shown signs that she's up next, and her time could very well be coming. So I really like that selection from you, Mike. I'm gonna go back to the NBA. Like I said, I'm gonna be highlighting a bunch of Canadian NBA players who have just been tearing up the league. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander grew up in Hamilton, Ontario. He has taken the league by storm. The Thunder, they have been absolutely horrible. But the one consistent bright spot on this team, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he was phenomenal in that win, that upset win against the Brooklyn Nets. He had 33 points, 9 assists, and 10 rebounds, 1 assist shy of a triple-double. And I love watching him play because he's just got that takeover gene. We've seen it a couple times this season, couple game winners to his name. He is a guy you want with the ball in his hands in late game situations. And out of all the Canadian talent, and there's a lot of them, he is personally my favorite watch. I just love his game, his ability to get to the basket, his ability to make tough shots. Unbelievable. I mean, if there's ever an opportunity down the line where we could see Shai on the Raptors, sign me up. This kid is so young, still so raw. He's only going to get better. And yeah, I think when the Thunder do eventually get good, hopefully they get good, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be at the forefront of all of that. And I really do hope the Thunder can figure this out, because Shai can be a willing piece of a good team. And right now, I just feel like they're wasting his talent over there, because this Thunder team, they don't even look like a basketball team right now. We've talked about them losing by 73. Yeah, they can have these nice upset wins here and there, but can they piece it together? They got a lot of good young talent, but I really want to see this Thunder team be relevant again. And they haven't been relevant since, KD, Westbrook, and Harden were there. So I really want to see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander be a part of this Thunder process that does look good for once. And hopefully that time comes soon. And I do want to give another quick honorary shout out to fellow Canadian Lu Dort. He was great in that game too against the Nets. He had 37 in the win. So he was unbelievable. And I think he's been, he's been really good for this Thunder team as well. And we got a chance to see the Thunder when they upset the Raptors, if you remember that game. And both of these Canadians had big time showings, particularly Dort. Sorry, I said 37. It was 27. But still, phenomenal number from him. And he's been just a joy to watch. So it's good, because the Thunder are bad, but as a Canadian, you temporarily want to check in on them just to see how those two guys are doing. So both of them were unreal in that win. And yeah, hopefully better days are coming for them and the Thunder.
Yeah, that's probably the only reason why the Thunder is so fun to watch, is because of those two Canadian players, and I'm happy they're getting that platform, that opportunity to kind of showcase all their talent. A little bit of a funny story. I actually, in 2018, I went and covered the All Canadian BioSteel tournament, which is the basketball showcase for Canadian talent, and Lu Dort was actually there. Now, at the time, like, Lu Dort was not really known. He wasn't a known commodity. But I actually got to interview him, and I remember vaguely watching him play. I'm like, wow, that guy's really good. But mind you, it's the Canadian showcase, so I'm taking that with a grain of salt. Like, this isn't the States, this isn't whatever. And it wasn't until this year that I pieced together that, holy, that was Lou Dort that I actually watched. And it just kind of came full circle that this guy's emerged the way that he has. And I got to find that interview somewhere because I'm sure it's pretty decent. I actually don't even know what I did with it, but kind of crazy how that came around and kind of the way he's emerged.
Yeah, he wasn't classified as a big time name coming in like some of these other guys like Shea, Jamal Murray, even Andrew Wiggins. He is proven to be a hidden gem. Nobody thought he was going to be this good and add this type of value to any team in the NBA. And he's really established himself as a solid guy you can count on. So it's great to see. And I only think he's going to get better. And I say this every show, but Canada basketball and that future team or even the present team looks very, very promising. All right, so we are going to end off here with our best bets for tonight. And I'll let you go first. Pressure's on, man. Let's see if you can string together a winner here.
Yeah, as I mentioned, 1-4, but let's just look short term. 1-1 in my last two, so that's pretty cool. But I am going to be going with the Phoenix Suns to cover a 5.5 point spread. They're the favorites against Indiana in Indiana. Now the Suns, we know what they've done against the Raptors. They've proven that they can definitely win on the road. I believe they're riding a 3-game road winning streak. They're 12-4 on the road this season. And the Pacers are, let's face it, they're worse than the Raptors. I know they have a lot of talent. However, they haven't been able to string it together. There's rumblings of that team wanting to blow the whole thing up. Malcolm Brogdon, who's probably their most important player, if not second most important player behind Sabonis, he's been questionable. And when I say questionable, I mean he's been an injury concern with his Achilles. So I don't know if he'll be in the lineup tonight. If he does, I'm assuming it's not going to be a long time. And the Phoenix Suns, like I said, they're a juggernaut right now in the NBA. So I am hoping that the Phoenix Suns can pick me up here and cover that 5.5 point spread, Luca.
Yeah, similar to that Raptors game, a little surprising that the number is that low, considering the Pacers are just nowhere near the level of the Suns. So hopefully that is no trap and you get yourself a victory. For my pick here, I'm going to go with the Cavaliers. They are 2.5 point favorites on the road against the Spurs. And this is a Cavs team coming off a very impressive, not only cover, but win over the Jazz. So I like them to keep it going here. And I think it's time to take this Cavaliers team serious. You look at them overall, they're 6 games above 500. Who had that at this point of the season? And they're 3-1 on this current Western Conference road trip. So this is usually a spot for Eastern Conference teams where they show their vulnerabilities and they kind of fall back a little bit, but the Cavaliers have stepped up and they have looked good in these games and in these wins. While the Spurs, they're going the other way, 1-6 in the new year, and they're just struggling right now to get healthy between injuries and health and safety protocols. It's been a disaster for the Spurs, which is common territory for them. They're usually a team that's considered a dark horse, but for the last couple of seasons, they have not been good whatsoever. They're headed into a new era, a retooling, a rebuilding era, if you will. So I'm laying the price here of the Cavaliers -2. I think this team gets it done. And right on note here, we got some we'll call it random news, breaking news. The Cavaliers have just hired Jose Calderon, former Raptor, as a front office role. So that's awesome to see for Jose Calderon, one of my favorite all-time Raptors. That's some good news to end off here.
Yeah, I would have loved to see him with the Raptors. We know what he feels about that franchise, but I think in everybody's books, he's one of their favorite players. Great person, great player, and all around, just happy to see Jose Calderon land this gig. And I'm excited to see kind of where it goes because Cleveland, they have a lot of potential right now, but they still haven't gotten over that hump. Maybe Jose, with all the talented backcourt talent that Cleveland has, maybe he's the one that kind of pieces it all together and pushes Cleveland over the top there. So very, very nice news to hear. And another thing, just quick shout out, happy birthday, happy 22nd birthday to Jonathan David, Canadian men's national team star. He plays for Lille, and he's a guy who's really emerged onto the scene in when he was 21. He had a heck of a year, and I'm hoping he only builds off that as he's touted to make a really big move from Lille to a bigger club, perhaps in the summer. So happy birthday, Jonathan David.
That's awesome. Have a great birthday. That is going to conclude Toronto today here on the Parlay. It's another great show. We talked Raps, Pistons, Leafs All-Stars, Canadian talent, and more. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast and all over social media. We come to you live daily, Monday through Friday, and we break down the latest from Toronto sports. So you definitely don't want to miss it. As always, thank you so much for watching. This is Luca and Mike signing off. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll catch you all again on Monday.